Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post of Pashas Vaeschanan will discuss acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. Because imagine a situation that you've been working with something for so long, something which is so important, and you've almost obtained it. You get so close, but at the last moment, you fail or you're denied, and you're not able to obtain this goal that you've been working towards. How do you deal with that frustration, with that disappointment? Because this is what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. As being leader of Bnei Yisrael, he came so close to being able to finally take them into Eretz Yisrael, but he was denied. At the beginning of this week's parasha, he relates to the Bnei Yisrael. He goes over again the story of how he had hoped that Hashem had changed his stance, that he would accept his request to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. But again, he was denied. His request was rejected. How does he deal with that disappointment? We see that he then tells over this story to the Bnei Yisrael. It's not a success story, it's a failure story. So what is the point of this? What is he trying to teach us? And I think it relates to the core principles of ACT. One of them is diffusion, where ACT looks at emotion and the importance of language, that we can diffuse the emotion from the experience. That if a person has a sentence, for example, I am useless, that instead of it having this negative emotion, that we just see it as words. And you can perhaps repeat it again and again and again, maybe with a tune, with a sing-along song, and putting in some comical aspect into the sentence that diffuses the emotion from the sentence and just sees it as language. And this perhaps is what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing by repeating this account of his failure, of the rejected request of going into Eretz Yisrael, is diffusing the emotion of disappointment and frustration. Secondly, there's acceptance. Acceptance in ACT is when a person is able to accept the reality of the situation, to just allow the experience to be without trying to deny it or change it. And this leads to positive results. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing. He was accepting the reality that he was not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. But this was then instead was to lead to positive results of helping Yehoshua, preparing Yehoshua and preparing Bnei Yisrael to go into Eretz Yisrael. So this was Moshe Rabbeinu accepting and embracing the reality. Next is being present in the moment. This is a mindfulness exercise where a person teaches themselves just to be present in the moment, to not try to judge the situation, to not try to change the situation, to be present in the moment. And a popular exercise in ACT is the raisin exercise, where instead of just eating the raisin, you look at it, you smell it, you feel the texture of the raisin, you put it in your mouth, you feel what it's like until finally you actually taste it. And this is to gradually teach a person the experience to nurture the ability to be present in the moment. Moshe Rabbeinu was present in the moment because in the Pasuk we are told that when he was denied the opportunity to go into Eretz Yisrael, he was then told at that moment to go up the mountain and to observe, to look in all directions, to look over the Yarden, to look into Eretz Canaan. And this was his opportunity to be present in the moment, to have this sensory experience of vision, to allow himself to accept the disappointment and be present in that moment of looking into Eretz Canaan. And then there's the observing self, where ACT sees the self as being transcendent, that we are not we are separate from our experiences, from our emotions. Our emotions are feelings, are a peripheral aspect of our existence, of our self, and we can observe it. We can observe what our experiences are like. We can allow our emotions and our feelings to pass by and to take note of them and to observe them, to see what they are like. And this perhaps was Moshe Rabbeinu's opportunity by telling over the story again to the Bnei Yisrael, was allowing the emotions to come up, the feelings and the thoughts, and just to allow himself to observe them, to be separate from this experience, to take note of what this experience was like. And then as a principle, there's also values, that the person should try to connect with what is actually important and meaningful to them. So for Moshe Rabbeinu, this was leadership. This was his life, to be leader of the Bnei Yisrael. So he was connecting with this value. At this moment, he was going over, preparing the Bnei Yisrael. At the end, it was his last opportunity. He says to them, I'm going to die. I'm not going to go into Eretz Yisrael, but as a leader, I'm now preparing you. You are going to go into Eretz Yisrael. So he was connecting with this core value that he had of being a leader of Bnei Yisrael. And by doing so, it sets himself up for the final principle of committed action, where you set the goals, you understand what your values are, and this leads to action and behavior. And this, by doing so, Moshe Rabbeinu was connecting with his value of leadership and this committed action of talking to the Bnei Yisrael, of going over this account, of relating the chronological story of what had happened to the Bnei Yisrael and his failure of being able to not being able to enter into Eretz Yisrael with the Bnei Yisrael was a committed action of preparing them to go into Eretz Yisrael and to finally get to the end of this story. And it was his committed action as leader. So I hope we can learn a lot from Moshe Rabbeinu of how he dealt with this frustration and disappointment of not being able to go into Eretz Yisrael with these core principles of ACT. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.